Hello, everybody, and welcome. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my ever-present co-host, Istanbul, not Constantinople. How you doing, Tom?
What up, friends?
Also joining us is the one and only the Twitter celebrity and famous individual, Rhellion. Brad, how you doing?
That's going a little bit too far, but I'll take it. How you doing? Glad to be here.
Absolutely. We're super glad to have you. We were talking before the show how there is not enough overlap between the world of the YouTubers and the Twitterers, but Warhammer Weekly plans to lead that charge to break it down. So I'll say right now, if you're not following, all of our viewers out there, if you're not following at Rhellion, get yourself on Twitter. What are you doing? Join the 2007, something like that. Go follow Rhellion.
I post a lot of crap during the day. It'll get you through it faster.
There you go. Exactly. You're not doing anything. All of you out there, you know you're bored in the middle of your day. What else are you going to do? Follow Rhellion. That's what you're going to do. All right. So, as usual, we'll start off with some news and rumors. So, Tom, kick us off, man. What do we got? What's the scoop?
Yes. So, we'll just start with kind of the releases this week. We have the going on pre-order this week is the box of Khorne Blood Warriors, 10 fig, $62. They look fantastic. They're basically the set of, I think you got 5 of them in the original box set, in the Age of Sigmar box set.
Correct.
This is going to be 10, and includes like a huge ass like batleth, like it's straight out of Star Trek. But that box set looks fantastic. But I would say that the real kind of pinnacle of the release this week is the Dominant Chaos Dreadhold, which is this keep that we've kind of seen kind of over and over and over again popping up in various images. But it's finally kind of the keep that we've been waiting for. They're marketing 4 different like packs to purchase it, like purchase parts of it, so you're not buying any one part. Vince, do you have the image of any of the images from this keep?
Oh, do I? Why, I'm so glad you asked, Tom. I most certainly do. Let's say, who's ready for some insanity? All right. Boom. How about that?
Now, that's a lot of kits. That's not just one.
That's a lot of kits. And we're not just talking about the models on top, which is also a lot of kits.
Yeah. So, this is a combo of, I think somebody calced it out, and it ends up being like 670 pounds worth of kits. So you're talking almost $1,000 of terrain right there. But that said, Vince and I were looking at it and kind of measuring out the like scale, and it looks like that's a 4x4 board underneath that terrain piece.
So there's still room for the dwarves to castle in the corner.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at this bottom corner, that's just the dwarves are ready to like very close siege it.
Perfect.
Yes. Even a massive $1,000 keep can't stop some dwarves from channeling, from channeling. Good God, from castling in the corner. Absolutely.
Yep. So the 4 packs are going to be the Skull Keep, which is one Skull Keep, which is the tower that you see in the middle, that has 2 door designs and a balcony overlooking despair. That is a direct quote from the description. Then there is the Overlord Bastion, which is 1 Skull Keep, an additional tower block, a stairway, a wall section, and a wall end. The first one, by the way, just the Skull Keep, was $75. That second one that I just read is $130 retail. The next one is the Malefic Gate, which is a gate, 2 wall sections, and a bridge to Damnation. That's $100 USD. And then finally is the Fortress Wall, which is 1 fortress wall section for the edifices of chaos run on and on into madness.
There you go. Sorry, I should have been showing the individual pictures. So there's the fortress wall. If you wondered where all the skulls went, there they are. There's all of them.
All of them. Yeah, from that big, like, the big chaos star, like, perspective, you don't, like, get to actually see that all of the battlements are skulls. All of them.
Yeah, so That's a lot of skulls. So yeah, there's that one, and then you had mentioned the Malefic Gate, which is this thing here, and then you had also mentioned the Bastion, which is just the triangle pieces that made up the edge of the star, as well as the stairs and such, and then the actual Skull Keep, which is the centerpiece.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
and most importantly, as you can see, the floor again, all skulls.
Yep.
We wouldn't want to let any square inch of this not be completely covered in skulls.
Some of the rules leaked out for it, and they have the rules for basically garrisoning a building. Is how it works, and it's not a lot different than anything you would expect. You know, like it's except that like when you attack from the keep walls, like you measure all attacks for the unit from the keep walls. Are you surprised? And you can put models on top to represent the unit that's garrisoning it. But other than that, it's you gain +1 to your cover. Like it's exactly as you would expect for what this is. So, yeah. So it's an interesting. So they snuck in some building rules there on that war scroll. In the last part of that, each of the wall sections was $25. That was the last point of sale on those. So, and then all this gets wrapped together in an 80-page hardback book that brings the Chaos Dreadhold to dark and terrible life, which is it's going to be a $33 hardback, and I'm guessing that it's going to have a lot of art and probably some rules. Probably the war scroll for this. Probably some rules on maybe some siege scenarios. I'm guessing. And probably some, this is all I'm guessing. I don't know the contents of this book. It hasn't been leaked yet. But we'll probably see, I'm guessing maybe some different formations for the keep. Obviously, we have this mega formation, this $1,000 formation. But I'm guessing that they probably have some other layouts that they
configurations.
Yeah.
You know, let me just say one thing real quick about this picture that we're looking at here, and that is those Stormguard are screwed. Like, in case anybody didn't notice, this is like 20 Stormguard down here in the corner marching up to the gate.
Hey, they're on the wall. Like, they're on the wall.
No, they aren't. Those are Blood Reavers.
Nope. To the right and left, they are leaking onto the walls. And they're, I think...
no, those are Blood Reavers. They have axes.
Oh.
They're just fleshy toned.
Huh.
Yeah, this is it. 20 Sigmarines against this. I guess they're hoping for sudden death.
I guess it could be worse.
Sure. It could be one Sigmarine.
There could be 5 more Bloodthirsters. There's no Siege casters to summon them.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's only one Bloodthirster floating around. Yeah, I'm glad to see the Gorgons made it into the picture, though. Boy, wouldn't we be remiss if those guys weren't here?
Clearly, G-Dub had some extra kits laying around.
Sure. Well, who doesn't love a Gorgon? Everybody loves Gary the Gorgon. All right.
So yeah, that's coming, and it's fantastic.
So if you were thinking about, say, buying a new car, but you weren't really sure about that yet, and instead you thought about buying 4 feet by 4 feet of wonderful terrain, then that's a reasonable financial decision that Games Workshop is going to offer you in a week and a half.
It's usually a decision that I make about every week.
Rent payment, more G-Dub, more miniatures. Yeah, sure, that seems fair. I get it.
Yeah, I usually get asked, hey, do you want to work some overtime? Let me calculate in my head how many extra kits I buy this week with those hours. Sure, yeah, I'll work.
Right, it's just a direct translation. I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'll say this. Man, that thing is redonk. It's beautiful. Like, you know, I've mentioned this on the show a couple times. Like, I got into Warhammer just over a year ago. Actually, it was a year ago this month. I'm at my 1-year Warhammer anniversary.
Congratulations. No one cares.
Yeah, exactly. But I got into Warhammer because of, ironically, the tabletop, because of the nostalgia of Warhammer Online. And this keep looks like Bastion Stair, which was a low-tier dungeon. and it's fantastic. Like a lot of people say, like this is way over the top. This is no place in the Warhammer lore. Let me point you to some of the art from like 7th and 8th edition that depicted that kind of stuff, and that stuff was clearly there and present.
Oh yeah, this is pure chaos right here. This is some classic old world chaos fortress, right straight out of Warhammer Online right here. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, great. Well, there you go, folks. Big castle. I assume, Rhellion, you've already set aside your pennies for this one. You're probably actually constructing the 4-foot by 4-foot battleboard as we do this, right?
I've the first wave of terrain, I snatched it all up. The second wave, I kind of held off. So I'm kind of waiting to see how it all kind of plays out and what I want to put together, because I've got a decent amount now.
That's fair. I'm in much the I picked up some realm gates because I was like, these seem like they're going to be relevant to the story. Being
those
the whole
kits
thing is
are
named that.
Fantastic. The realm gates, they're great.
Yeah, they are a really good kit, and I was lucky enough to snatch them up on a steal through a slight pricing mishap. So whatever, that's fine. Bank error in my favor. And I think I've been thinking about picking up the that Dais, the Dragon Fate one, just because I think that thing does look pretty cool. It's a nice looking piece. All right. Well, but who cares about that? Tom, what else we got?
Largely, things have been kind of quiet this week. I had mentioned last week that the Chaos Dwarves and the Tamercan Legion got a nod from Forge World in the release of the Battle Scrolls. Well, this week, guess what, people? Those Battle Scrolls have been added to the Warhammer app. That's right, people. Games Workshop acknowledged Chaos Dwarves as an army. They are official. Vince, shut your mouth. They're official.
They're not a real army. It's fine. I don't care where they add them. They're still not a real army. Like, it's just what it is. You chose to play not a real army.
So, for those Chaos Dwarf players out there, you can go ahead and celebrate that they have been acknowledged in a very real way.
Now, Brad, what's your feeling on the Chaos Dwarves as an army?
I'm okay with the Chaos Dwarves. I'm obviously a tournament player, so I look at stuff and how competitive it is, and they have some nasty aspects. Now with the way things are going, that you have these grand alliances and Chaos is one large army, it's really interesting to see what kind of synergies you can come up with by maybe using one unit or a monster or a war machine from Chaos Dwarves and mixing it in with your demons and your Warriors of Chaos and your Beastmen monsters here and there, and see how things go. So I think that's really cool how you can actually play like the Tamercan Legion with the special characters maybe thrown in a narrative battle or maybe even a competitive battle.
Sure. And I think it's perfectly in character. I mean, if you look at our 8th edition Warriors of Chaos or whatever had, Hell Cannons that had sneaky Chaos Dwarves hiding around on it or whatever. So, there's certainly the pedigree that these guys. Chaos has always been a mixy thing, right? I mean, so it's. I don't think I think even the fluffiest bunny out there has to accept that. Yeah, that's perfectly in line to start smashing some chaos together and having some fun with it. All right. Anything else we want to cover in some news and rumors, Tom, before we move on?
Not that I could think of. I mean, there's some tournament stuff, but we're going to get to that in the larger conversation.
We are indeed. So let's turn to some hobby time. And so, Rhellion, you're the guest. You get to you get the blessing and the curse of going first. So what's on your desk? What mountain of figs that need painted are about to collapse on you?
Well, I've got a battle on two fronts going on right now. For the Michigan GT coming up in September, there's a Friday night Infinity ITS tournament that I have to paint 300 points for. And then there is an Age of Sigmar tournament Saturday and Sunday that I've decided not to go with one of my many fully painted armies, of course, and to finish up a new project. So I had a large Nagash undead army that I painted last year for Wapaka that I'm transplanting to round bases and painting some new models and trying out some new War Scroll combinations. So even with all the stuff that I had, I still have stuff unpainted.
So now is Big Papa leading this combined force? Is he in your pool? Is it using a pool choice system?
It's using a wound-based system with choices with monster choices, war machine choices, and wizard choices. So Nagash costs 5 of your 6 choices, so I won't be taking him. I'm actually taking a very ghoul-heavy army with some crypt horrors, some ghouls, a ghoul king on a terrorgeist, and a ghoul king on foot.
Nice, sexy. Ah, that ghoul king on terrorgeist. I'm so glad to see him back in the mix and that he's got some legs.
Yeah, it's really cool because like a lot of competitive choices in the past, you wouldn't say, yeah, my unit of 40 zombies backed up by a corpse cart are really going to be awesome. That's not something you would have said very often.
It's so true, right? Like that's such a wonderful point that oftentimes the units that were like the most competitive were so god awful boring. Not always. There were certainly some sexiness out there that was really good. Witch elves are at least moderately decent we used in the right way, and they were sexy or whatever. But more often than not, it was Skaven slaves, right? Like that is an effective unit of nothing you're excited about, right?
Yeah, I've got about 200 Skaven slaves sitting on the shelf now, and they're watching the Storm Vermin and the Plague Monks get played.
There you go. As well they should be. Take that, you slaves. Get in the background. You're back in your hole. All right, Tom. What about you, man? What's on your table right now?
Well, I was working on that big block of Phoenix Guard and Phoenix Heroes and whatnot, but with the armies on parade coming out, I am going to try to squeeze to finish a bunch of my Force Goblin army. So a bunch of the custom kind of assembled, and so I made a bunch of Force Goblins, ordered a bunch of bits, and got converted a bunch of the Goblin Riders over like a standard Goblins with the bony protrusion claws. So having a whole unit of like spiky spiders that I'm working on right now, and as well as getting ready to start up my Ragnarok, or one of my 3 Ragnaroks. So
you're gonna be finally getting your airbrush back in order to work on that Ragnarok?
I've already fired it back up today.
Good, glad to hear it. That actually turns me back to another question. So let me jump back to Brad for a minute. So Brad, are you brush painting all your Infinity guys, or are you using the Angel Geralda's airbrush method?
No, I'm brush painting them. The way that I'm doing my my Pano army, I kind of paint raised plates rather than airbrushing. I mostly do airbrushing for base coating and some large-scale blending work, but usually not for details. I'm not that good.
He's well, I mean, obviously, who's as good as him, right? I mean, you can buy the book and read it, but that guy's like some kind of weird airbrush sorcerer. So yeah. As for me, my current hobby is actually focused on a different game as well, as I am trying to finish up my my Neverborn. So there's my little, I don't know what that guy, I don't remember what his name is, but there's my little ghosty guy.
Oh, Poltergeist.
Yes. But that makes sense. Why would I not know that? And the rest of their buddies, and then of course everybody's favorite, Teddy, who is just waiting on his base to be finished. But yeah, there we go. So that crew is almost done, and then I'll have the entire No Shelter Here crew and the Mother of Monsters crew, plus Teddy and the Doppelganger done. So should be enough to get some good games in with a little bit of choice.
Yeah, it's a good start with a good amount of variety.
And I think probably next it'll be some Beckoners, because who doesn't want some sexy soulless chicks to try to draw people in? That seems hot. All right. So with that, as always, we'd love to hear what you're working on out there. Hopefully, while you're watching this show, hopefully we're helping you get something painted or accomplished or whatever. That's the more painted figs in the world, the better the world is. Everybody wonders how you get to world peace. It's not donations to charity. It's painted miniatures. That's right. You heard it here first. Okay. So let's talk about our main topic. So our subject this week is Age of Sigmar and tournaments. And Rhellion, as you said, you're a tournament player, and I was super excited to have you on the show because you actually ran an Age of Sigmar tournament recently. And So this week I wanted to talk in detail about, Age of Sigmar and tournaments. I thought maybe we'd start with you telling us about, your experience. How did you run it? What did you think of it? And how did it go? And that sort of thing.
Sure, yeah. It was kind of a quick go. We wanted to test out some rules to give some feedback to the Michigan GT because they were trying to decide, are we playing Age of Sigmar? Are we playing 8th edition? If we play, how are we going to run this thing? So Canhammer Chris on Twitter posted up their tournament pack for, I believe it's called Capital City Carnage or Capital City Bloodbath in Canada coming up next month. We took their composition rules and kind of molded it just slightly to kind of what we wanted, and we ran a nice small 10-player tournament locally, which is pretty much about the same size we would get for 8th edition. So we saw some new faces, some new Age of Sigmar players, and had a good time. The basic comp that we used allowed you to take an army from the 4 great alliances. So you were choosing either order, chaos, destruction, or death, and your army was limited to those keywords was kind of the way to pick your army, even though you can look in the rule book and you can see beastmen, demons, skaven, warriors are all part of chaos, vampires, tomb kings part of death, but they also have those keywords in the bottom of their war scroll, which is very important for a lot of the combos that you want to try to pull off. The basic army restriction was 125 wounds worth of models, and there were some extra restrictions to make sure you didn't just take 125 wounds worth of bloodthirsters. You had 1 to 4 war scrolls could have the hero keyword, and then in addition to that kind of main balancing factor, you were allowed to get 6 choices of the wizard, monster, and war machine keyword. And multiple levels, like, say, for example, Kairos has 2 spells he can cast a turn. He counts as 2 wizard choices and a monster, so he's 3 choices from your 6.
Oh, wow.
Nice. So the wizard is just like, is it one per spell they can cast a turn? Was that literally how it was decided?
Yeah, most wizards can only cast 1 spell. We didn't penalize somebody who could dispel more than 1. There's only a couple, I think, that can dispel more spells than they can cast.
So would a Slon count?
Cast 3? Yeah, that's my immediate question. Did the Slon cost 3?
Can he cast 3 spells a turn?
Yeah, he can.
Then yeah, you would.
Wow.
Take that, frog.
So he would be 1 choice from your hero pool, which is separate, and then 3 character choices. So that would limit you a little bit on all your Carnosaurs and Stegodons and all those guys. Then in addition to those, we have a maximum of 3 individual war scrolls, so you can't take 4 units or 4 hell cannons, I guess, something like that.
Sure.
A max of 40 wounds per war scroll. Originally started at 30, but kind of bumped it to 40 because there are a lot of units that get bonuses at 40. Like I think it's Empire State Troops. That's when they max out their bonuses, and maybe Skaven. I think Stormvermin get +1 to hit or something if they have more models than their opponent.
Right.
And then we had no duplicate named heroes, so you can't take more than 1 Nagash, obviously.
Right.
Or more than 1 Chakax or whoever. Then there's one thing we threw in right at the very end was we put in a 60 wound shot cap with ranged attacks more than 12 inches. So we had an early. Basically, I'll just call out my buddy Jake, who he was running some pretty horrendous Tzeentch shooting lists with double hell cannon and lots and lots of flamers of Tzeentch and exalted flamers, and I played another guy who had a whole bunch of elven archers, and I thought, I mean, I don't want this to completely be 40k, but I know there's a lot of shooting involved, so let's allow a little bit less than half of your army if you choose to have some shooting attacks.
Gotcha. So if basically, could I have 125 wounds worth of stuff that shoots, but only 60 of those wounds can be stuff that shoots more than 12 inches? Was that kind of the way it's broken down?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not sure. like I know like the Korgorath from the starter kit has like an 8-inch shooting attack, so that wouldn't count. But I don't even know really that much that has short shooting.
Like what is Skaven? Like the Skaven sling, like their base troop. Don't they have like slings that are throwing 8 or 12?
Okay. If like I think the slaves maybe can get slings that are that.
Yeah, I mean, like the first thing that comes to my mind, filth-wise, is the salamanders, right? Yeah. Because they spit 8 or 12 if they have skinkies poking them in the behind.
Yeah, and those are cannonballs.
Yeah, those are filthy cannonball spitters.
Yeah, and the point obviously is just to try to get you to make a little bit of a balanced list, and everything's so quick. If you get all that extra shooting, it's a pretty solid advantage. So
sure, absolutely.
The couple of main rules that we had were kind of like rules changes. There weren't too many in this rules pack because I kind of wanted to play it as is. Only set stuff that was going to cause the world to explode if you didn't explain something. So we measured base to base, and we limited summoning to scrolls that you started with. So you don't have access to the entire collection of Chaos Scrolls to summon if you play a Chaos Wizard. You have to only summon the units that you start with in your army list. And you can only summon 1 unit per turn.
And you could deploy, like, so when you deployed, you could deploy anything from your list of stuff that you brought, right?
Right. In this pack that we just ran 125 wounds, deploy everything. We weren't playing with sideboards or. I guess if somebody chose to, they could stop deploying at any time, like the rules state, but the other person could deploy their max 125 wounds.
Did you guys play? With sudden death or not?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Not this time. We left that out. Try to be easier, a little bit more straightforward tournament rather than tournament with scenarios with different objectives rather than trying to have that be a deciding factor.
Sure. Yeah. So did each of your rounds have scenarios and objectives and such in them?
Yeah. Each round, I kind of. Like I went through years past of actual Adepticon 40K scenarios, and I did like a primary, secondary, and tertiary objective for each mission. Primary was worth 10, secondary was worth 6, and the tertiary was either worth 4 points or 2 points each for 2 smaller objectives.
Got it.
Like the first mission, there were 3 objectives on the center line to try to split the armies up and make you choose to go after either targets first or go after objectives to try to hold them or to split your forces, etc., etc. Whereas the second mission was more of a kill mission. We played kill points like 40K, where each full war scroll was worth 1 kill point, and characters and monsters were worth 2 kill points.
Nice. I like it. All you need is kill. That's just some murder-thon.
Right.
Always good to have mixed in there. I support this.
And then the final scenario, we played actually with 5 objectives scattered across the battlefield. So again, you were getting split up all over the place to try to get objectives. And important note was that you had to be a multiple model unit to capture objectives. So characters, single chariots, monsters couldn't capture objectives, but they could contest within.
So you could. But like multiple chariot units could take units.
Yeah, like a Tomb King unit of chariots, or like for the Ringer army, I was playing the Khorne Blood Tide, and I had a unit of Korgoraths. So the unit of monsters could capture objective. But it did bite me because I actually lost a monster to a battle shock test.
Oh yeah, sure.
I was talking on Twitter. I said, "Has anybody actually lost a monster to battle shock yet?" Because I don't even know what other units of monsters you can take.
I don't know of any.
Yeah, it had never even occurred to me as a possibility. You may be one of the few human beings on the planet who has experienced this uniquely singular event. So there you go. See how it's so hard to do anything or new anymore, but so you can claim it.
I sat there. I lost a model. I rolled my battle shock. I saw the 6 come up, and I said, "Huh. I think I just lost one of my monsters." I didn't expect that to happen.
Suddenly, that command ability, inspiring presence, looks a lot better.
Oh man.
Yeah. He was. I think the previous turn, I dropped my my corn banner to make me immune to battle shock, and didn't do it the turn where I lost the monster.
Oh.
Well, that's great. So, how did it like? What are your feelings post tournament? How did you feel it went? Did everybody have a good time? You know, that kind of thing. Like, what were people saying and talking to you about? What changes would you make if you could do it again? You know, that kind of thing.
Well, the best thing was that I had a really good balance of players. Like I had 1 death, 2 destruction, 3 order, and 4 chaos. So everybody got a good feel, I believe, of how kind of Age of Sigmar spreads out. My main feeling is that scenarios are mandatory. I don't think it won't be fun for everybody if you're just clumping in the middle and fighting, just jamming dice away from the first roll for the next 2.5 hours. I mean, it's fun to roll dice, but it's also fun to move around and do objectives and prioritize your targets rather than just running at people. And I really think objectives will be the best way to make a fun event. If you have fun ones or interesting ones, or if you play into the theme of an event, that's going to be the way to go, I think.
And that makes sense to me because, honestly, I don't think that's that much different than the world we used to live in, right? I mean, the tournaments that were sort of 5 games of basically pitched battle with maybe some kind of minor scenario for a couple hundred victory points, that never impressed me then either because it was just like, whatever. You know, like
right.
I like a good scenario. Something else to think about. The problem in 8th edition was 8th edition was so complicated. If you're, like that is to say, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I just mean like it's a very complex game. You've got to keep a lot in your head. And to do that and then worry about a complicated scenario, it was easy to forget one or the other, right?
I liked it because I thought it was a great way to distinguish being able to plan for all of those scenarios while also having a game plan on the table and executing it. It was a good way to set yourself apart if you were able to not just table the guy in front of you and get max points, but also while performing well, having it in your head to do your objectives. And along with the way that how you were talking about playing Malifaux. Malifaux is a strictly objective-based game.
Right.
That's great, and the way that mixes in, if you play objectives in Age of Sigmar, I think you'll have a lot of fun with it.
Rhellion, how do you think? So you guys knew all the scenarios while building your lists? Is that correct?
Yeah, I posted them ahead of time for the guys that were playing.
How mandatory do you think knowing the scenarios ought to be for tournaments? Do you think that there's space for not knowing some of the scenarios or not knowing all of them?
I like to think that it's a good way to give players a chance to really plan and do well, specifically knowing the scenarios, because it always stinks when you're the guy that shows up to Adepticon and you're on the final table and you didn't plan for Blood and Glory and they're playing straight Blood and Glory, and you lose Adepticon on table 1, game 5, the first turn, because you Bloodthirster got a rock dropped on his head.
Yeah.
Or, say, you're playing in my Age of Sigmar tournament, and you bring a list full of monsters. That's really cool, but you can't do any objectives. Mm-hmm. Or if you have a whole bunch of multiple small units, in the second scenario, your army's worth 100 kill points. I like to think that if you have a chance to really balance your army for all of the different possibilities, it makes for a more fun game for everybody, not just your chances in all of the scenarios.
Yeah, I think that's something about that sounds absolutely correct to me. Just because I love the idea of having the scenarios early. I mean, it doesn't have to be months in advance or something, but early, so I can read them and think about my strategy and stuff like that. Especially, I mean, I think that I agree. I'd love to have it pre-list building. I think one of the advantages to Age and the tournament setups I like are where there is some kind of sideboard, pool choice situation. I think that's what I've been leaning to because I love being a Magic player for years. I value the sideboard, right? Like I wouldn't go to a Magic tournament without a sideboard. Obviously, that's just suicide. And So I think part of my brain just works that way. Like I get the, oh, okay, I see what I'm facing here. Let me shift up my strategy or what I've got on the table to suit that. And there's something really compelling about that to me.
And that's kind of what I was asking would there be a value in providing players both a sideboard and scenarios that they may not know the full details of going into?
I think it would be cool to provide maybe 7 or 8 scenarios, but you only play 5 of them.
Oh, nice.
maybe you can't plan for everything, but at least you have an idea in your head.
That's a good idea.
It's always the complete surprise that if you completely take somebody off guard and they're not prepared for it, they're not going to be happy. And ultimately, as a tournament organizer, you want all your players to be happy. That can't happen all the time. There's going to be people mad, not only just because they have a bad game or bad luck, but if you can prevent some of that by at least making it a little more transparent, and even if you want to keep it a little bit of a surprise, I think that's an interesting way to go. Maybe have a pool of scenarios, and then you pick 5. I know Buckeye Battles has done that in the past. They've posted like 10 scenarios, and
yep.
You always know there's going to be like 2 of them in there, like they always do the Secret Messenger, and they always do Hidden Deployment, but then the other 3 you kind of got to plan for everything. So. Yeah,
I was going to say that is the Buckeye strat, and I like that very much. I went there this year; it was a great tournament, and but like had a super amount of fun getting my teeth kicked in with some of the worst luck I've ever had. But hey, whatever, that's fine. I mean, basically, it's the. If you remember, those were like the very friendly but not too soft teachers, like in college or something, right? Who, when your midterm or final is coming up, they give you like a sheet, and it's got like 4 questions, and they're like, your final or whatever is going to be 2 of these questions, right? And that was the way it was done.
I think I'm that kind of teacher. I really try not to be, but I kind of am. So it's a little bit of a trial by fire a lot of time with games, and you kind of also give pointers, and you just kind of work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought then, obviously there's some other Age of Sigmar tournaments that are going on as well. I don't know how many of them you've gotten to see, but I thought we would take a look at just a couple of them, talk through them for just a moment, kind of talk about what's going on with them. So I'm going to go ahead and return to sharing here real quick. And let's take a look at this one. So the Realm Gate Wars. This is actually like Warhammer World. And so have you seen this at all yet, Rhellion?
I actually, I was looking at that today to kind of show prep for you. That is not actually a tournament. That's like a big campaign weekend.
Yes, you raised exactly the point I was going to. Like, this is not a tournament in the traditional sense of the word. You're absolutely right. The army construction rules are like, we talked about. You kind of went through the rules you had, and then here we look at what their rules are. We're going to use scenarios. You get 100 models. There's 5 games.
Yep. Yeah, but then, you know what I always do? I always scroll to the back. How do I win? There is no winner.
There's no way. You do not win like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. There's no the battle point or the battle winner or whatever, right? So the games, just like each victory. So I assume they're just using the standard rules out of the Age of Sigmar set for minor or major victory, right? So you have to pick a side, chaos or order, and each victory pushes control for that side. And then at the end of all of this, the winning faction gets an award, right? So whoever owns the most.
If they use some of those the favor rules or whatever, the multiple scenarios in a row rules where you actually get bonuses for winning games, and that are in the massive 4 pages of rules that they've given us.
Yes. Hold on, I'm going to need to go get the sheet. I don't remember exactly which part of the rules you're referencing.
Yeah, there's a set of rules where if you win a game, your next game you get like a bonus.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, so exactly. Your actual 3, other than this winning faction one, right? These other 3 are just vote-based awards. So there are 3 individual, what we'll call it, awards but they're not in any traditional sense of how we would think of them from a standard tournament, right? So just best army votes, best painting votes. Well, I guess there's actually multiple within the painting thing, and then favorite game vote, and that's what decides these three. So I think that this, to me, what this says is this is how Games Workshop wants to do their tournaments, right? I mean, that's how I read this, right? Is that this is the type of tournament that they want to see with this game. That not the traditional tournament.
Yeah, very much a hobby event rather than a competitive tournament.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So the other one of note was Nova. So this is the Nova Open, and this is in September.
Yep.
Not too far away at all, actually. Just a couple weeks now. And so this I thought was interesting in that they're actually sitting down for like an hour to talk through everything with everybody, and then they're going to do a Friday night, like kind of more fun, loose series of games with a small number of war scrolls, and then Saturday they're doing the actual 3-game tournament. And they're doing basically like a modified 20-0 system based on the difference in wounds that you kill. And then they have a fair, so like if the difference, you've got to get up to, I think they had, yeah, there you go. So lists can contain up to 100 wounds and no fewer than 95. So if we assume 100 wound lists, then that means that you've got to kill more than, the difference, right, has to be greater than half your enemy's army to 20 of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I thought they had some interesting things near. So,
and not only that, like wounds put on monsters, even if you don't kill the whole monster, still count against it at the end.
Right, every wound dealt.
Yep. Which, like that combined with the like certain models, like certain or war scrolls, like counting like less wounds, even though being able to put more models on the table. I thought that was also an interesting deployment of like a twist on that as well. Like it's not just 100 straight wounds. Like like the what is that? The 5th bullet point down details that like you're going to get units for cheaper amounts of wounds.
Yeah. So your unit of 20 Skaven slaves only costs 15 wounds.
Yeah. So there may be more wounds on the table than actually need to for a certain type of victory.
Sure. I thought this like the army construction rules are not that different than a lot of things I've seen. It all sort of effectively breaks down to the similar sort of thing. But what I found was interesting was this set down here. So the generals can only use their unique command ability once per game. Thought that was a pretty big change. You cannot shoot into or out of close combat, bringing back the lookout sir rule.
Yep.
And then this one was, to me, the most controversial that I thought was sort of shocking. Remove the closest non-command models first when removing casualties.
Yep.
This is the one that really worries me, because I don't know what this seems like. You can really, really, really make it so the enemy can't fight you back. Right? Like I don't know that for sure, but what I feel like is if I charge into a unit and I pick that charger to fight first, and I plow 7 models out of the enemy force, right? Well, then everything except the command has to get pulled. First of all, like that could create some weird unit coherency. But beyond that, beyond just sort of the logistical rules, what could happen pretty easily is that when the enemy picks that battered force to fight back, they can't even pile in and get within the space of you anymore. Right? If they were kind of spread out, I could easily see it so there's other than the command, no one fights back.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of wide-sweeping rules alterations or rewrites, but I think it's a little early for that, but on the other hand, it could create an interesting event, and everybody's going to be playing under those same rules. So, I mean, have at it. Let's see what happens.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that will create consequences that I don't think that they're prepared for. Like, I don't know if they've fully thought through the consequences of that rule change.
Yeah, I don't think we've had enough play testing on the regular rules, let alone alterations to those rules and knowing what's going to happen. So, it's personally, I think it's a little early for all of that, but I mean, more power to them.
Sure. No, absolutely. If nothing else, it's sort of the laboratory of all these tournaments is really interesting as they evolve, right? To see what works and doesn't work, and exactly what you said. I am quite literally of the exact same mind as you. That I feel like we probably want to stick Hugh closer to the normal rules with just a few minor things. Like, to me, base to base has to happen, like that kind of stuff. But beyond that, you know, I feel like, but I'm interested, I guess, from a more scientific perspective, an anthropological perspective, as to what the result of this is.
If anything, at the end of it, it'll help out all the rest of us when we say, "Hey, did this work?" or "Was this a terrible mistake?" or "What would you change?" That sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only way these tournaments are going to get better is by a lot of people failing, right? A lot of TOs making mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that. I just mean, like, we've all got to learn a completely new way to do tournaments here, right? So yeah, other than that, I thought the only other one that was interesting was this one down here. Sorry, not that one. This one right here. The Mystic Shield castings do not stack, and an armor save of 1 always fails. So I thought that was fun because not getting to 1-up armor is not that hard anymore, and also pretty good. Better than old 1-up armor.
Interestingly, they did not put in the 1-up to hit, 1-up to wound.
Sure, which is also very possible.
Yeah, we had a quick FAQ when I realized that wasn't in my pack, just saying ones fail. It was an easy little on the fly FAQ because I mean we did allow Mystic Shield to stack, but it's just a simple ones always fail.
Right.
There was another thing in the list building. I think it was this one, and I don't know if, let's see. It might, like, didn't they have the like you must include a hero, and that was this pack, right? You must include. I thought it was this pack that you must include a hero, and that hero must so that you can have a general. I was pretty sure it was this rules pack.
They didn't want to let you pick a random Skaven slave like the rules say.
Right. Let's see. I could swear it was this pack. Maybe it was a different one.
Yeah, not sure. But either way, yes, there was one I was reading that had that restriction.
And that was another interesting deployment of that because, I mean, what that does is that says that all generals will either have a 4 to 14 or 4 to 16 wound range, as opposed to, like, if you made the captain of your Swordmaster's unit, of your 40-strong Swordmaster unit, you know, like, who's going to be the last to die out of that unit? You know, that's a big swing.
Yeah, that is a good point, picking the rank and file guys, because you can pull off that unit however you want.
Yeah,
and he can still Inspiring Presence the same as anybody else, right? He might not have a unique command ability, but in a situation like this where you can only use it once, like, I don't know, maybe the champion of the Swordmaster unit is really the best choice, because then he's just making his own unit unbreakable forever, and he'll never die unless you want him to.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the flexibility because maybe one game there's a certain command ability of your characters that you want to take advantage of against a certain opponent, whereas another game you're like, hey, I want to charge first turn. I'm going to give my Bloodthirster my general and his command ability where he adds a d6 to a charge or rerolls charges, and I'm going to get right in there. But I don't need to do that against dwarves because I'm not going to be able to charge him first turn or something like that.
Right.
Yep.
Other big tournaments coming up this weekend, right? Is I think it's this weekend, isn't it? Clash of Swords?
It's this weekend or next, I believe.
Yeah. There we go. So a lot of you can follow at Channel 4 News on Twitter, and he has been just a deluge of information about the tournament, and I thought it was a bunch of really fascinating information.
Mm-hmm.
he had a nice representation. No Tomb Kings, no dwarves, which he was very happy about, for the no dwarves at least. And he has very very strong sentiments about the presence of dwarves. And I thought there was a pretty nice even mix. The most represented army had 8. The least represented army had, I think, 3 of the armies that were there, other than TK and dwarves. And my suspicion on TK is nobody had the actual good things from TK painted. That's what I'm guessing right now. The lack of Ushabti and Necrosphinxes are keeping people from playing TK.
Or they didn't have multiple Casket of Souls. That's the other half of this.
Could also be. Everybody has 1, though.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're +1 to all casting within range stacks.
Sure. Who doesn't want more of that? But they've got, this is a 64-person tournament, right? Coming up this whenever it is, this weekend or next. So this is a really big tournament, and I thought their compact was pretty good. I think that they got a really nice spread. It shows me that, yeah, there's a lot of interest out there for this. All right. So I thought we would pivot for a moment off of talking about the individual tournaments. I know there might be more I am forgetting about. That is entirely possible. But I thought we would turn to some of the more general discussion here for a few moments. We got a few minutes left in the show. And I thought we'd kind of talk about, like, just talking about Age of Sigmar and tournaments in general. And Rhellion, I think you already covered a few of these, but what do we think? You know, some people have said, oh, Age of Sigmar doesn't work for tournaments. I think that's clearly just what we've shown. There's a bunch of them coming up. I think Holy Wars GT got announced as also Age of Sigmar. Yep. So very excited about that. So I mean, clearly plenty of people are going to adopt this. You know, the secret to having a tournament on Age of Sigmar is people want to play it, right? Like that's all it takes to have a tournament. So I thought maybe we'd talk about what do we think we would want to see in Age of Sigmar tournaments going forward, i.e., do we want to see armies restricted down to look like the old armies, i.e., you have to bring high elves, not order, or do we want to see the factions used, or some of both? You know, what are the interesting things you'd maybe like to see explored or you think are essential? So, as usual, again, Brad, you're the guest, so you get the blessing and curse of going first.
What would I like to see in an Age of Sigmar tournament? I really, really like the alliances, that there are 4 armies now with lots of variety. At my event this weekend, there were 4 Chaos armies. They were all completely different. And they were solidly powerful in their own right. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for playing the alliances with different themes and different combinations, and it could work out well for everybody. I think, like I said before, scenarios are pretty much mandatory. I think coming up with a good army selection system is going to be the key for a lot of these events. What I ran was pretty good. It worked out. Everybody had a really good time, but it can be broken pretty easily, I think. Even looking at it, sitting and looking at it now after running and seeing how things played out. I really like the Clash comp. It's also what Holy Wars is pretty much carbon copying Mo's comp system. It's going to be a living document. He's going to add in Chaos Warriors, I believe. He's going to make updates. You can if you take a look at it now, you can see he's already updated as he's gone along based on play testing. So, good army selection, good army themes, and a couple of quick rules clarifications. You don't need to rewrite the whole game, which you can easily do since it's only 4 pages long, but just a couple of quick clarifications. You can really have a successful event that a lot of people want to play at.
I like it. Yeah, I agree with every one of those points. By the way, last week we did put up all the links to the documents he's talking about for the Clash comp and everything like that, so that's actually linked on last week's video. I will grab it again and put it down on this week's video. So if you're curious and you want to go take a look at the rules yourself, see Clash, and I guess what Holy Wars is going to go to, that link will be down below. So there you go. Tom, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with what he said. What I would say is that I would like to see some Rather than having a full list deployment, I like the idea of coming with like 15 War Scrolls, and you choose which 15 War Scrolls you come with. You can only maybe deploy 6 of those per match or something like that. I mean, and I think that, so I think that something like that would be interesting. And then more so, like for summoning, you can summon out of any of your 15 War Scrolls. So those are locked in, but so like Lizardmen and Undead maybe have some more flexibility with their summoning rules than just what starts on the table. And so I thought that might be interesting as well.
All right.
Yeah, I really agree with both those points. I think the way Clash and Holy Wars do it, you get 30 pool choices based on their pool comp, but you only deploy 20 of them every game.
Yep.
So you sit across from the table, you see what your opponent has and what scenario you're playing, and you can make a couple of choices here and there. So I like that idea.
Yeah, and it lets you like make that decision as you're deploying, right? So like you see what they're laying down, and you go, you know what, this is actually going to be the better choice at this point, which adds a degree of strategy and tactics even in the deployment phase, which I would love to keep rather than just coming to the table with a list and laying it down on the table.
Yeah, I agree. I think another way to set apart a good general who can think on his feet with deploying his correct army, while at the same time not playing rules as written and bringing your entire collection and setting it on the table next to you and deploying whatever you want.
Yep. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to lay down my 11,000 points of High Elves, but let's be honest. Nobody wants that.
You're talking to the guy that brought 8,000 points of Undead fully painted to a 2,000-point tournament in Wapaka last year. And because I brought Nagash, and I had to have displayed and fully painted every model I wanted to summon during the tournament.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
I hope it rained Undead. That's for sure. There was just as a slight aside, I was watching Doom and Darkness's recap of his Southern Impact tournament in Australia earlier today, which if you haven't seen, go check out Doom and Darkness's channel and go watch it. He does amazing tournament recaps. Like, they are fantastic. Because he TO'd it, and so he literally reviews match by match and gives you a brief overview of every match he was playing and what the outcome of the game was. It's super cool. And anyways, there was a game that was like Manfred against Archon the Black, and so it was like an Undead Legions against an Undead Legions, and they were both using summoning. He talked about how he would keep walking back and forth between the table, and it looked like there were more troops when he would come back. So like instead of, as the game progressed, it was just more was showing up, not less.
So they ended with more models on the table than they started?
Right. Right, exactly. Like, things were dying, it's just you're out summoning your losses, which I thought was just, because Archon has huge, they're both, pretty good undeath casters. So I thought that was pretty awesome. So I guess here's one thing I would love to see, and I'd love to see a tournament take this on, and I think that this goes along the line of thinking differently about the way we view the tournament and the box that the tournament lived in under the previous world. And that is, not only do I agree with the pool choices and the scenarios, which I think are essential to me to preserve the spirit of this and to have a lot of fun, I would like to see it go a step farther and see actually some kind of, like, not overwhelming, but like minor narrative throughput through like day 1 scenarios, and then a separate narrative throughput of day 2 scenarios. So games 1 through 3 and 4 through 5 normally. And I would love to see different size forces in differing games. So good. Like, your pool is the same. You show up, you've got, let's say, 30 for scrolls or whatever, and that's your pool. I don't care. Whatever the pool is. But in game 1, which is a smaller, very like heavy, lots of movement and objectives-based thing, you can only deploy like 7 War Scrolls or something, like small, right? And then in game 2, it's bigger. In game 3, it's like all the way up to full size or whatever. And then game 4 and 5, the next day we flip those expectations, around again in interesting ways, right? maybe even completely shift it around and have other smaller little mini matches or side things in there. Because depending on how you broke this out time-wise, there's no reason why we necessarily have to hew exactly the 5-game format. So rather than see people experiment with the rules as much, like this shooting and out of combat or whatever, that kind of stuff, like that's less interesting to me. What's interesting to me is how can Age of Sigmar empower us to play with the format of the tournament to do some different things and to have some new experiences.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts. Hopefully, I don't know, Brad. Would you? If I said, we've got 2 matches. First one's small, second one's medium. Then we have a half-hour hero showdown where you have your last opponent. So whoever you played in game 2, you have a second match with him afterward that's a half-hour long where you each pick one hero or some equivalent number of wounds, and you have a small clash between them, and then you go into your game 3 and have a big match with some minor bonus, something like that.
That's
How's
a
that
system
grab you?
that I would love to attempt to break. It seems so off the wall that it's really good that it would be hard for someone to have experience to try to bring a list that would totally ruin anyone's day because it's quite a bit different from what most people are normally used to playing. I think it would be pretty fun.
Yeah, and it's performing at a bunch of different levels, right? So on the individual small scale level, large scale level, and then objective level. So creating a list that's going to be able to perform well in all those arenas obviously is problematic. It would be a challenge.
Right. And that's what I find interesting, right? I mean, yeah, that is the whole. That's a big part of what makes prepping up for that tournament interesting, and all that thought that goes into it. So I think
it's that much more fun when you're playing your basement games, prepping for a tournament, messing around with character battles and messing around with little skirmishes that you probably wouldn't play very often.
Right, exactly. More reason to experience the game in new ways. So there you go. That's hopefully pick it up, some TO out there, because I am far too lazy to ever be a TO. I mean, my hat's off to you, sir, for running any kind of tournament. You are made of sterner stuff than me there, Brad, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I just do I do local stuff. I let the experts run the big GTs. Besides, nobody wants to come to Detroit for a tournament anyways.
There you go. Are you, so let me ask you a question. You planning on going to Holy Wars?
Yes. We dropped out last minute last year, and after seeing the pictures of the terrain and the beautiful tables that Steve puts together, we're really looking forward to trying to go this year. If we can get a spot, it's a pretty exclusive tournament. If we can get a spot, we're going to be in this year.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, that sounds. I was thinking of trying to get a spot as well, just because it's not far away from me. I'm in Ohio. You're up in Michigan, so you're not that far away at all. But as you said, it's tough. But either way, it's certainly within striking distance. It's one of those things that I'm like, yeah, I'd make that drive.
Yeah, my wife and I, my wife who plays Warhammer, obviously, by the way, she has a few painted armies of her own. We go to a lot of tournaments, and we get over to the Chicago and Wisconsin way a few times a year, and it's one of those destination tournaments. If you can get in, it's a real treat.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of our hour. I hope that was an entertaining and informative hour about tournaments and thoughts on tournaments in the age of Sigmar. Rhellion, thank you very much for coming along. As I mentioned at the top of the show, at Rhellion, follow this man on Twitter and fill your days with interesting thoughts.
I don't know about interesting, but at least we'll have something on your screen.
Content quality not guaranteed. Content
exactly.
Guaranteed. There you go.
Yeah, maybe some Alpha, maybe some Infinity, some Age of Sigmar, whatever card my dog sees and chases after. That's usually how I pick my war games for that week.
I like it. Tom, any final thoughts before we close out here for the evening?
As we've mentioned in previous shows, the development for the Warhammer, for the Mordheim expansion that we're working on for Age of Sigmar is well underway. We should have, I think we're probably still going to be on track to have something playable by the end of the month.
Yep. So if you loved Mordheim and you like the Age of Sigmar, or at least are willing to give the Age of Sigmar a try, maybe under a slightly alternate set of play expectations, then you can look forward to that. Tom and I have been working furtively on the Mordheim expansion pack for AoS, so we should have that out by the end of the month. A play-testable version.
Okay. This will be an alpha version.
Yes.
A 1.0.
Yes, so if you're interested in doing some testing and finding all of our horrible errors all throughout, then we'll make that available to as many people as you like. Rhellion, thank you again for being here. It was an absolute pleasure to have you, and sir, you are welcome back anytime that we want to blend the worlds of Twitter and YouTube again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I had a fun time. It was good. We're going to get more people on Twitter and more people from Twitter on YouTube.
That's right. As usual, you can follow us on @Warhammer Weekly, and if you follow @Warhammer Weekly and go look at who I'm following, those are all people you should be following. Rhellion is one of them, as is his wife, and as is all the people who are running the tournaments that we just have talked about. All of them are on Twitter and talking about it, and you should join in the conversation out there. Or, as always, below. We'd love to hear from you. But until then, we'll see you next Wednesday.